Coffee and Tools. So, episode 30. The
Kreg
idea
tools.
is great. This week at Coffee and Tools, I picked up one of these a while back. I really haven't had time to really deal with it. Kreg makes a lot of really neat stuff, and they make the pocket joint and some routers, a lot of really nice, cool, sort of thinking out of the box almost kind of tools and accessories, such as this accessory right here. This isn't even very expensive, but it could be like a really handy item. So I think this week we should take a look at this thing and how to use it, because when I got it, I took a look at these instructions back here, and I have to admit, I don't know who did the pictures, the black and white, or wrote the instructions up, but it is probably about as confusing and as clear as mud. So to demonstrate what Kreg is kind of like replacing is, you got a stick of wood like this, and you might, mark a line, and you might use something like that. See that real well, hopefully. Lighting is always a problem with this stuff, and I'm going to back this off a little bit. And so what you do is you bring your this is we'll say this is a pretend big power saw or something, Craftsman, circular, DeWalt, whatever, and we're going to cut. What we're going to do is actually hold it against that, and this will give me a nice straight line and keep me straight while I make my cut. We'll start again. So what I did was I read these instructions carefully, because the way Kreg ships this thing, it's on this piece of cardboard, and it's nailed in with some kind of little black I guess they're sort of push-ins, and you push these things in, and I guess that's how they package this black. So what's going to happen is they're going to end up tearing this up, and I sort of wanted to get a good look at the instructions and just see, how to use this tool before we, get into it. And so I read this over, and I still thought that I purchased a tool for a certain application. The application is this. You got a 2x4 block of wood, whatever, and you put your squaring tool up, you mark a line, and then you back this off, and then I'd put my saw up against that until I got my line scribed, and then I would just use this as a guide. It would keep me nice and straight, and I thought, this little guy from Kreg, man, that's going to be really nice, and it gives you a little bit more profile to work against. One of the issues that I ran into with these is when you're using something like this, you have to watch that you're not binding up on the top of the squaring tool here as you're coming across. Many times I have found that this higher profile on something like this runs into the saw and creates a problem. So a lot of times you get kind of all backed around and you end up having to cut it this way so that nothing runs into this. And it's not really a big issue with most cuts. You can pretty much see what's going on. This keeps me nice and straight, and it keeps that saw going back and forth, gets me to cut through. Excuse me. This keeps it nice and straight this way, and it allows the saw to go straight through and follow a nice straight line, so you get a really nice straight cut. And it's a pretty simple principle, but at the same time, it's a great thing. If you don't do it, if you just cut by hand like this is what you end up with, is the sort of wobbly line, or even running off a little bit. And if you want really nice cut straight pieces of lumber, this is sort of a quick fix, but it does the trick. I really like it, and I've been doing it for years. And so I saw the Kreg thing, and I thought, well, anybody that's made it an improvement on that, such as this little product, I thought, well, let's grab it and just see what we can do with it. And it's really the same kind of principle, but it's got a nice long piece here that can extend out, so you can get a longer reach. And I thought, well, that's great, because you could cut a longer board and keep that saw, still have something to rest it against while you're cutting. They say this is for your hands, so you sort of like grab it here to hold it. I'm not sure how that works, because when I used my triangle or squaring tool you saw, a lot of times I'm holding this up with the lumber, you know, the hand is on the lumber, this is on the lumber, and I'm trying to cut through. So on a workbench situation, it might be a little different. And again, I'm still trying to figure out what, see, they've got, I'll just jump to one here, like this one here. Press your saw base against the square cut, which, you know, yeah, okay. And then cut, being careful to keep the guide arm away from your blade. Huh? All right. Here's another one here that gets even stranger. There's something here about, yeah, here it is here, this very first one. Once you've installed the 10 black rubber feet, position your square cut on a test workpiece to hold it firmly in place. Once you've installed 10 black rubber feet. So that first sentence on this just confused me, so I didn't bother reading the rest of it. At that point, I just decided I would leave it in the packaging like this, and I'll hang it on the wall for display. And at some point, we'll do a review about this on Coffee and Tools. This picture probably right in here is probably about the award-winning one for me. It's the best picture. It shows where he's got the piece out, he's got it against the wood, he's got this to ride against the saw, the edge of the saw, in which case, and that, folks, would be this edge here. This back edge on any saw, back here, you've got things like the motor, and you've got other things like these little locks and stuff sometimes that are in the way, so you're going to bump into things. So you want to kind of leave this area alone, and when you're cutting, you know, put this up against that black fence, or in this case, excuse me, I screwed that up. Put this against this area to cut. No, yeah, can you see that? And see, this will give you a nice guide, and you cut a nice straight line. You just keep your, you know, saw tight against that. Yeah, okay. So what I'm curious now is the saw setup with the, once you've installed the 10 black rubber feet. 10? Seriously? Who writes this stuff? Anyways, well, hey, thanks for dropping by this week at Coffee and Tools. Hope you learned something about Kreg. Kreg offers a lot of different tools, and they're good tools. Don't let me kid you. I'm not being critical about, you know, what their applications are, but whoever wrote those instructions, he didn't go to the same school as me. He took the short bus. Yeah. What I'm curious now is the saw setup with the, once you've installed the 10 black rubber feet.